Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I wanted to talk about how to choose the best wedges that are suited to your game. There's lots of things to talk about here. We've got loft, we've got gapping, we've got bounce and grinds and all of that. So let's take a look so you can choose the best wedges that suit your game. So I've got some new wedges to put in the bag today, a little bit later than expected due to the pandemic, but I thought this was a great opportunity to actually talk through how best select the wedges to suit your game. So I've got the new Voki SM8 wedges, and you know, there's a lot to think about when choosing these wedges. It's not just a case of going into the shop, picking up a few wedges, popping them in the bag. The first thing we need to think about is gapping and the distance that you hit your clubs. As the sets of clubs now are getting stronger and stronger, we're seeing pitching wedges as strong as 43 degrees, and in some of these sets getting as strong as 38 degrees. So going with a standard gap wedge around 50-52 degrees, that's going to give you a massive gap between your gap wedge and your pitching wedge from the set that you've purchased. So therefore, in those sets, you need to be thinking about a second pitching wedge or two gap wedges down to make sure that we're keeping sort of 4, 5 or maximum 6 degrees in between your clubs. Otherwise, we're going to have a big variation in distance. So the first thing you need to do is work out what loft your pitching wedge is, and then you can work everything from there. We then look at how many clubs you've got in your bag. So how many irons, how many woods, how many clubs have you got left? So for me, I go down to pitching wedge, leaves me 3 clubs left. So I then go 52, 56, and then a 60 degree, because I like having a 60 degree wedge in the bag. So my gapping's done based on my pitching wedge loft and the fact that I want a 60 degree, and then I work everything off from there, or the two wedges in between. So once you've got the number of wedges, once you've got your loft sorted out, you then need to think about the bounce and the grind. So first of all, the bounce. So the bounce is the amount that the rear of the club here, so the back edge of the club, is below the front edge of the club. Now, the more bounce that you have, the easier it's going to be to play it out of a bunker, because it's not going to dig into the sand. The easier it is to play out of soft lies if you're playing parkland courses. But it does make it slightly harder on the links courses where I play a lot of golf, because the leading edge is going to sit slightly above the ground when you're setting that up. And so off really hard pan lies, it does make getting underneath that ball a little bit tricky. Now Voki, which is the wedges I use, and one of the reasons I like Voki, and also I like fitting players with Voki, is that it's a huge variety of options that they have. So they use letters. So we go L for low bounce, we go M for medium bounce or manipulator, people that like to manipulate the club face, because on this 60 degree that I've got here, I have a medium bounce, so that's 8 degrees. We can just see here how the grind is set so that it sits really nicely, whether I hold that nice and square or whether I start opening that club face up, it sits nicely on this sort of grind at the back of the club. We then move into some with the higher bounces, with the S, the F, and then into some different ones with the D. So I use a 56D, which gives me 12 degrees of bounce, but with the D, it's also giving me that grind so that I like to open up my club face. So it gives me the bounce to make it for giving out of bunkers, playing around the greens, but also it sits really nicely when I open up that club face. And then go right up to the K grind, which is like the ultimate bunker wedge. So if you struggle in the bunker and you need a club that's really geared towards helping you get the ball out of the bunker, stop that club digging in the sand, getting through. Then the K wedge in the Vokies is absolutely brilliant for that because it just skims through the sand and it helps you get out of those bunkers. For the gap wedges, they're just in the F, but again, they give you 2 bounce options. So depending on whether you have a tendency to really dig into the ground or whether you tend to really take very shallow divots, again, that can influence what bounce you need on your gap wedge. So again, I like to have a little bit more bounce on my gap wedge just to help me strike through, so I can come down quite steep to get the spin, but it's not going to dig into the ground too much. So lots to think about. It is really beneficial to get a fitting with your wedges, but if you're not, first of all, let's think about your gapping. So just do a little bit of research. What is the loft of your pitching wedge? What's the loft of the most lofted club that you want in your bag? How many clubs have you got left? And then divide those up. You know, you want a minimum of 4 degrees, probably a maximum of 6 degrees, so that you've got a good gapping of distances. Secondly, what bounces do you need and what grinds? You know, that'll be based on what courses you play. The courses you play tend to be quite soft turf. Do you tend to take quite big divots? Or are you playing links courses where it's really firm and you're quite a shallow divot taker anyway? So that'll impact the bounce that you have. And then the grinds. Do you like to open up that club face when you're playing shots, or do you very much like to play all your shots with a square blade? So 3 things to think about. I hope that's been helpful. Get in touch if you need any more advice, and please like this video, subscribe to the channel. It really helps build the community. Good luck.